I'm really pleased to introduce Eric Allness, who serves as a Wisconsin Assistant State Conservationist for Partnerships for the U.S. Department of Ag's Natural Resources Conservation Service, known as NRCS. He works with conservation partners to develop NRCS grants and agreements which aim to address natural resource concerns at the state and local levels. He has a big portfolio of agreement collaborations with a variety of partners across the state. So thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Mary. Very good. Fantastic to be able to have an opportunity to provide some information on USDA NRCS. And a handful of information that I was intending to provide has somewhat been previously brought up, but I'll reiterate it and maybe expand upon a couple additional items specifically on matters such as Farm Bill. What I'm going to speak on is kind of briefly when it comes to Farm Bill policy in regards to USDA and NRCS, and also the conservation program opportunities and the connection or interrelation with soil carbon or soil health and sustainable agriculture. So as a very quick primer, if you will, on USDA and NRCS, challenge you with a little trivia question. So in what year was USDA formed? Yeah, USDA. That would be 1862 under President Lincoln. And what I find notable about that is right in the middle of the Civil War. And whether or not there was even going to be a United States government and democracy, but President Lincoln deemed it critically essential to get the department established, and he coined it the People's Department. And today it impacts all of our lives. Some say 3 times a day at a minimum. Now, NRCS was born out of the Dust Bowl, and Chris had good slides on that. And, you know, Dust Bowl originated in the Great Plains area as a result of the agricultural practices of the day coupled with drought. But here in Wisconsin, we weren't immune to massive, severe soil erosion that was going on. The picture on the left there is soil erosion in the Coon Creek watershed. And as a result, Wisconsin owns the proud distinction of having the first watershed project in the nation. So that started in 1933. And actually, this summer celebrated the 90th anniversary of the watershed. That sign that you see there still stands today on Highway 14, just north of Coon Valley. And a key aspect of the work that NRCS does, it's all about voluntary conservation that's locally led in a partnership manner. So NRCS is not a regulatory agency, which makes it very easy to engage with producers. And they understand and respect the privacy to which NRCS affords to them through the Farm Bill. So we work with producers to address their natural resource concerns that they're coming to us voluntarily for. And as such, we're protecting information about their farms such that that prevents them from potential legalities that could potentially come into play with them. So again, it's all about voluntary, locally led conservation. USDA has 100,000 employees nationwide that are contained within 29 agencies and offices. NRCS is the lead, the core, the primary federal agency when it comes to providing technical assistance to ag producers, to farmers and landowners, or farmers and forest landowners. So 100,000 employees USDA. NRCS, we have 11,000 employees nationwide. Here in Wisconsin, we have approximately 300 employees, and we have offices not in every county, but about 3/4 of the state. And on an annual basis, here in Wisconsin, we're providing anywhere between $60 million to $80 million annually out to farmers and forest landowners to implement conservation practices, majority of which have a benefit for soil carbon, soil health, and sustainable ag, of course. When we talk natural resource concerns, if you've ever heard the an acronym SWAPA, which is soil, water, air, plants, animals, There's also an energy or a human component to what we consider the overarching resource concerns. It was previously shown in a handful of other presentations, you know, the principles of soil health, minimize disturbance, you want to maximize living roots, soil cover, biodiversity, and the integration of livestock as well. Last year, NRCS published a listing of climate-smart agriculture and forestry practices. And you can find this on the NRCS website, a quick Google search. So there's 53 conservation practices that make this list. The total quantity of NRCS conservation practices in our portfolio is about 170. So not all the practices are showcased on this activity list, but the commonality with these conservation practices is that they're going to have direct and significant benefits when it comes to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and or sequestering carbon. And it was previously brought up, you know, how or agroforestry is a key component when it comes to climate change. You'll see a lot of agroforestry practices on the list, but also conservation practices you should be very familiar with: nutrient management, cover crop, conservation crop rotation, just to name a few. And Gretchen had done a great job talking about the Farm Bill. And so in the context of policies and programs, the Farm Bill is the driver when it comes to NRCS and the work that we do. You can see by this chart here, you know, nutrition title gets the predominant funding through the Farm Bill, about 75% of it. Crop insurance is number 2, commodities is number 3, and then conservation is number 4. And when it comes to the Farm Bill discussions, really, the conservation title, there's opportunities for improvement, but it's not the big fight that's had. A lot of it, the discussion has to do with the nutrition and also the commodity titles, especially things such as reference prices for crops, which is kind of the safety net when it comes to helping out producers when prices are low. The Farm Bill, 2018 Farm Bill had an expiration date of September 30th of 2023. It did expire, but then as a result of the continuing resolution, it was extended 1 year. So it is now back in play until September 30th of 2024. So Congress has a little more time to get the new one in place. And so the Farm Bill then authorizes all these programs, I hope many of which you've already previously heard of: the EQIP Environmental Quality Incentives Program, Conservation Stewardship Program, and etc. And within each of these programs, they all have their uniquenesses, but there's commonalities between them all as far as providing incentives to producers to implement core conservation practices in a voluntary manner, and so many of which have direct benefit for soil health. Farm Bill also authorizes a number of NRCS easement programs, and these are to either restore a wetland or to maintain agricultural land so that it protects it from conversion to development. We also have a healthy forest reserve easement program to protect forest lands. We have a robust watershed programs as well. In Wisconsin, we have, I forget the exact number, if it's 77 large-scale dams that were built predominantly in the 1960s and 70s, and also a general watershed protection program and rehabilitation program as well. So we got these major programs. We then have a whole litany of initiatives, whether it be the Great Lakes, grazing lands, joint chiefs, organic. Again, commonalities, they all have their uniqueness with location and focus, but the conservation practices that get tagged to these programs have similarities, whether it be agroforestry or all the agronomic, nutrient management, soil health practices. And so all of this can be kind of overwhelming to producers. We have two handy guides. One is the Farmer's Guide to Farm Bill Programs. And if you've not heard, NRCS is getting very active with urban agriculture. And when you think of urban agriculture, I hope you're not fixated upon downtown Madison, downtown Milwaukee. We use the term urban, but really what it means is just areas where NRCS has not previously had a dominant presence. So it can be suburban or suburban areas, tribal food sovereignty, of course, urban areas as well too, small scale productions. And so as USDA is the People's Department, NRCS, we're wanting to make sure all of our programs and assistance is available to producers of any type. So if you're a backyard grower, growing small garden, or have chickens in Madison, fantastic, we have resources available. And if you're a large scale crop operation in Portage County, we've been there as well too to provide that assistance. When it comes to federal and state level bills, can, in my opinion, get a little bit overwhelming to keep track of them all. So if you want to do a quick query, just go to congress.gov and type in soil carbon bills or soil health bills, and you'll get a long laundry list, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, the vast majority of all bills that get introduced don't see the light of day, meaning they don't get through committee or they don't get a chance to get approved for funding. But what they do or what they can do is help inform other legislation, or specifically the Farm Bill too, to help or to provide opportunities through that broader omnibus bill. And at the state level, whether it be here in Wisconsin or other states, there's been an increased interest to provide incentives to producers, whether it be to provide rebates in insurance for planting practices like cover crops or other soil improving practices. The biggest legislation that was incredibly monumental was the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, that was passed in August. $19.5 billion coming to specifically NRCS over the course of 4 years. So there's this whole pot of money through Farm Bill that's still in existence, and then tack onto that this monumental funding in IRA. And so for Wisconsin, we're going to have this year alone a 50% increase. We're here in year 2 of the IRA funding right here. A 50% increase in cost share assistance to ag producers. So if a producer has any interest in getting some funding for agroforestry, soil health practices, nutrient management, you name it, it's there for them. And you can see how this really then ramps up. And so to deliver all this conservation, NRCS, we're relying heavily upon our partners to promote out to producers that, hey, this funding opportunity is there. And we need partners to help out too with the delivery of all this technical assistance to help these producers with these practices. Another big funding opportunity that happened in the last years is the Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities. When this was announced, it was just going to be when I say just, it's going to be a $1 billion funding award out to organizations. There was such a high demand for it that the Secretary of Ag, Bill Sack, committed $3.1 billion for this effort. So that's going to fund 141 projects throughout the nation. Here in Wisconsin, there's going to be 26 projects that are going to be available to producers. And these run the gamut of soil health practices, nutrient management, conservation crop rotation, to digesters, to conversion to grass-based agriculture. So again, you just see this. In my career, I have never seen this level of federal commitment with funding to address climate change issues. And one could say it's long overdue. I would say it's better late than never. And again, to producers, this is the greatest time to have an opportunity to get some cost share assistance to help with offset the risks and the costs for these conservation practices. Last item I want to bring up was USDA climate hubs. And if you've not heard of these before, these started in 2014. There's 11 hubs in the country for the Midwest. The office is based out of Ames, Iowa. And the whole point is have a resource where USDA can collaborate internally within the department, but then also with ag producers and also with conservation partners, just kind of help facilitate conversations, get data, promote programs and activities. So I hope you're a subscriber to the climate hubs and all the information that they're generating. And with that, offer up questions or comments.
I'm involved in a couple of the climate smart commodity projects, and USDA has been rather direct in insisting that the Comet Farm and Comet Planner be the platform used for project analysis and planning. I mentioned earlier about the Blue Book being published soon, the new version of it coming out. How involved will the state office be in working with the TSBs on understanding the Comet tool and providing feedback on the methods and practices of the Blue Book?
Yeah, well, for Wisconsin, we do want to be available to the conservation partners. Ultimately, the agreements through this Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodity are between the entity and our national headquarters,
Right.
But we have a vested interest, and we have staff that are interested and excited. So we'll help out to the extent that we can, but there's a limit as far as how much training we can provide to the technical service providers. So there's a fine line there as getting them oriented or information that they need. But as far as really in-depth hand-holding, we just don't have the capacity.
What about for the broader community in terms of not just those projects, but in terms of the farming community itself, to extension, technical school, private sector, consultants to the ag sector? Will there be resources? Are you anticipating that to provide support for them?
Yeah, absolutely. And in the role that I hold as the Assistant State Conservation Partnerships, a lot of the work that I do is to collaborate with organizations like UW. So UW then can help in turn provide training to technical service providers that we collaborate with, or other entities as well too. So yeah, as far as the partnerships that NRCS has and wants to continue to develop, we need everybody. We need everybody's assistance, and hopefully all pulling in the same direction. So yeah, NRCS alone can't carry the full burden.
And I know at the Wisconsin level, at least, NRCS has partnered pretty heavily with an organization called Wisconsin Land and Water, and that represents a lot of the counties, and they're offering, as much training and support as they can through that tool as well, given because it is so closely tied with a lot of the programs that NRCS administers and the large funding that's anticipated to come in the next few years from those program areas.
Yeah, for the longest time, NRCS, we were pretty static in the amount of staffing that we had, but we're actually on our side, we're in a growth industry as far as bringing on new federal employees as well. I could talk ad nauseum too about the challenges of that. So, Diane, did you want to add to that?
Oh, well, I just wanted to ask that question because my understanding, just from anecdotal evidence, was that one of the barriers to conservation assistance getting out to farmers was not just the amount of funding, but the NRCS staff who had the ability to handle all those requests. So I'm glad to hear the staffing is going up.
Yeah, and you can see a lot of the bills that get introduced as well is talking about or putting focus in on more technical service providers to help ag producers. Because again, we take great pride in the work that we do as NRCS staff, but we can't be everywhere at all the time. And we do need specialists that NRCS otherwise just, we don't have the capacity to assist with. So.
All right, thank you so much, Eric.